The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Master Mai, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say about really anything you want. Text 166 177. WhatsApp, same number, 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. Call 66 13 68. The Liverpool terminal, says texter 223. It's built using a raised ramp anchored to the dock, and when the boat arrives at the top of the tide, the location suffered from a big swell, and the boat's ramp doesn't stay at the same level as the dock ramp. The old berth was different, as the docking ramp floated with the tide and had no problem staying in touch with the ship. That's 223's version of what he thinks is wrong with the Liverpool landing stage. Well, apart from being several over... anyway, and a note in from 857 who sent me some photos of an out-of-date camper van. The camper van's at the Lord Street car park. It's almost like a scrapyard. Disgusted, Big John. Thank you for those photos. Is anybody living in those camper vans in the car park where the old bus station used to be? There's an irony, isn't there, in that there is a line of bus stops that we call the bus station, and behind that line of bus stops is where the old bus station used to be, a proper bus station, you know, had a shop, everything. Buses used to pull in, pull out, and well, there it is. Any thoughts on this, please do get in touch. And thanks to John for that yesterday. Lots of feedback on whether or not this is going to happen, this big development, the 14-storey development in Douglas, whether or not the money's there, whether or not the planning's going to go in. We'll wait and see. You never know. It may actually happen. If it does, it'll certainly be iconic, and certainly the people at the top of those 14 stories will have a heck of a view. Something you'll see from a long way out. But we'll see whether or not it happens. You never know. It actually might. I was disgusted yesterday regarding the horse tram property on the Prom. It was said, what's our TT visitors going to say about this? Well, I'm a ratepayer along with residents of the Isle of Man, and we have to look after all these dilapidated buildings 52 weeks a year. So why are we only concerned when the TT races are on for 4 weeks a year, TT and MGP? I think the government should look after the people who pay taxes and keep them in a job as places are closing around the Isle of Man, says Kay. Point taken, Kay, but you get kind of blind to it, don't you? There are these brownfield sites around the Isle of Man that we kind of see, but we don't see, because for years they've been there, whether it's Newsons, whether it's the bus station, whether it's the old prison on Victoria Road. I think the Bowling Green, they've put the Bowling Green out to tender, although it won't be a pub anymore. But certainly the Park Road School site, big, huge site. And we get used to looking at, well, and certainly South Quay in Douglas is full of the darn things. So we get used to this. But your point is taken. The Department of Infrastructure put the campers there for people waiting for the buses, apparently, says Nick the Skip. Well, it will be a start if they could find out who owns those camper vans and turn them into snack bars. I don't want to do the calf out of any business, but, you know, street food and all that, you never know. The lads from the DIY have fitted the aluminium floodboard in the gaps on the new sea wall. Now, are these rated for waves hitting them, says Bill? Well, we don't know, do we? But that flash new wall of ours on the promenade, it's a Bobby Dazzler, isn't it, eh? David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. I went to town this morning and had a little look around. So we went to Chester Street car park, come down, and then you know where the old supermarket used to be?
Yeah.
An M&Co there.
Yeah.
So there's two major buildings which is owned by the taxpayer, and the custodians are the government departments, which is probably in this particular case is the DOI.
Yeah.
What are we doing to advertise them? What are we doing to enhance them?
Well, the last thing I heard, you remember last TT, they advertised that M&Co was available for rent, but the roof did leak.
A leak.
Yes.
Included a leak in it. And I just wondered, you look at these places, it's like you said before there to the other person is, you go around all the time and you forget to look or stop and just have a look at the areas there. The same as at the harbour, you mentioned that. We've still got the Newsom site there, across the road where there's a gaping hole there where the pub used to be on the corner by Manx Gas Building. It's just full of water. It's just full of seawater. And I don't know what they're doing. What's their plan? They've got these harebrained schemes with this development company, which we can't ask questions on, can we?
Well, no, we've certainly asked them if they want to come in and chat about Manx Development Corporation. And the thing is, if they've got good news to tell, we'd happily facilitate telling good news. It's not like, we just, it would be nice to know. And basically, it is our money, so...
But they've got ultimate thing from the banks as well. This is what annoys me more is the old nurses' home there. Somebody was advertising it, weren't they? Was it advertised to let? Was it advertised, or could the local authority take them on? You know, I'm not saying that they would want to. But,
well, again, we don't know. And the big question with the old nurses' home, which I have to say is a huge building now, it's very, very impressive. We don't know how much it costs. We don't know whether it was on budget, certainly not on time. But can anybody rent those apartments if they have a vehicle? Because it's supposedly in the Domain Road village, in the Upper Douglas village, the 20-minute city. So what are they going to do? And there are quite a few apartments there, and there'll be more when they start building on the old commercial sites like James Cain and places like that. What happens? Because Domain Road is chock-a-block now.
Yeah, and I feel for the residents, and hopefully Mr. Moore would come on and tell us, because he's lived in the area for a long time there. And the promises probably were made by, never known the council, but the government and the politicians for the area. And then don't forget, it was Ann Corlett, wasn't it? The start of the 20-mile-an-hour thing.
It was. Well, she wanted 20 is plenty, and that was purely around Ballacameen High School, which I have to say, and I can say because I live around there, that gets very congested, and particularly at school times from kind of 8:10 in the morning till 8:45, it's absolutely, and you've got buses going down there as well, big double-deckers going down there, so the last thing you want is somebody whizzing along Ballabruey. That's understood. Whether or not you make it dynamic at different parts of the day with signs that come on at various times. But certainly, I mean, the important thing is nobody, and everybody's skirting around this, nobody wants to see a child killed. And that's the whole issue. If somebody's whizzing along at 30 plus and a child runs out between cars, you daren't think about it.
No, and I just wondered, Andy, I'm going to throw the thought out there. Shall we now start talking about Neighbourhood Watch again? Do you remember?
That kind of died a death, didn't it?
It did, because do you remember even the current Chief Constable said he was supportive of neighbourhood policing. Now, don't forget, we had that email from the Eastern Neighbourhood regarding Onken from immediate effect. So what do we do? Who's the person we talk to?
And did they ever say why that is? That resources? What is it?
No idea yet. The only thing to do is put these. It's so annoying, really, when you ring up government departments. I'm not blaming all of them. If a simple answer would be, Mr. Quirk, we haven't got the officers anymore. So, okay, we haven't got the officers anymore. Do we still use special constables at nights, weekends, and whatever? because that's a resource you could actually use, and they could be community related. The same thing with Neighbourhood Watch as such, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I've just had a message, by the way, from a special constable who tells me they are called special constables and they do use them. So they're not called community police officers anymore. They're special constables, and they do use them.
Yeah, but who do we know them? Because I'm talking about years ago now, maybe a few years ago now. We used to know them all, didn't we?
Yeah.
We used to respect them.
And that was the point, David, is that, that whole village atmosphere, and let's face it, Onken is a village, people, everybody used to know, you'd know who was in charge, you'd know the commissioners, you'd know the police officers, you'd know who worked for the essential services around there. Everybody would know, and surely, and certainly the chief constable absolutely reinforces policing by consent. And he advocates that citizens, the population, help the police force.
Yeah, and we do. It's not squealing. It's actually bringing your community together to say certain things are happening. Somebody today, when I was in town, said to me, something's happening in Ballacurry. Can you come and have a look? Why are people bringing dogs into a kiddies' playground? And, that's something that we could action as a local authority and put some education out there. Why would you bring a dog into a kiddies' play area when you know something is going to happen or potentially could happen?
Yeah.
They don't need to do it. But what I was going to do, Andy, too, is in a future couple of weeks, the black spots. There are black spots around the island, and I'll be going out and about like I did once to go to Castletown. Remember all the cushags?
Oh, crikey, yes. Yes.
I seen one the other day, and I've got it marked up. I'm looking for the biggest cushag throughout the summer, and I will give them a prize. All right?
Good to hear from you. Have a good weekend. Cheers, Dan. 18
Bye.
minutes after 12 o'clock it is. If you've got a big cushag near you, by all means, take a snap and WhatsApp it in if you can. Mark's with us now. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Andy. How you doing, fella?
Terrific. I wish I was outside, but I'm inside.
Why do you just open a window? That's what most people would do.
Those days are long gone. We used to be able to open windows now. We've.
Have you got aircon in your building?
Oh, we've got air conditioning. We've got everything here, and we're going to have solar panels soon. We're very, very chic. We're very stylish.
Yeah, and as soon as you put them on, you'll get nothing but miserable days, and there'll be no sun, and you can't charge your batteries.
And we don't know what the seagulls are going to do as well.
Oh, no, they'll love them. Anyway, that's not what I was ringing up about. What I was ringing up about is, you're a very intelligent man. I mean, I'm not sugarcoating you here, and I'm not, licking up to you or anything, but you are a very, very intelligent man, and I'd like to ask you a simple question. And if you don't know the answer, maybe you'll know someone that does. I was led to believe, now this could be an urban myth, it could be a Manx myth, but I was always led to believe that any new building could not be taller than the nearest church spire. Now, if you look around Douglas, you will find that there's no buildings bigger than the nearest church spire. I mean, look at Victory House. If you stand there, St Andrew's Church on the corner, the spire's taller.
Yeah.
St Mary's is taller. St Matthew's is taller than the old Peveril building. Now, is that a myth, or would maybe Charles Garb be able to answer that?
I have no idea, but I'm sure somebody does. Is that a myth? If anybody knows, by all means, do get in touch.
Because can you imagine a 14-storey monstrosity on where the old bus station used to be? And let's not forget, Andy, while we're putting things to bed, that was an Art Deco building.
Oh, what? The old bus station?
The old bus station was an Art Deco building, and they just ripped it to shreds.
And not just a bus station; it was an air terminal. You used to be able to check in there and get a bus to Ronaldsway and have checked in.
And you could put 10 pence in the little televisions that they had on the mezzanine floor and watch daytime television, which was basically nothing but cartoons.
Crikey.
Right, one more thing before I let you go, Andy. Wetherspoons.
Yeah.
Everyone's going on about how, it's going to be great for the local nightlife. People are going to be able to buy cheap booze because in the UK everything's cheap, the food's cheap. It's not going to be that at all, because don't forget, your man's still going to have to bring the stuff to the island, so he's going to have to pay for freight. And you tell me where on this island people get cheap meat. There is nowhere. And he's not allowed to import it. So this is just this is another myth. Wetherspoons might be, a good thing for the high street, and they might well be employing up to over. Although I don't know where they're getting this 120 figure from, but never mind. But they will not be selling their steak and chips, and they won't be selling their Sunday roasts, and they will not be selling their pints of Guinness any cheaper than any other place, because they will have to import the stuff.
I thought they could, they're going to call it the Conister's Arms. I thought they could have really played to history and called it the post office or something.
But didn't you say the other day when you were talking about it that Wetherspoons call all their pubs something moon?
They used to, and I was corrected on this, but what they used to be, the word moon was like the sun under the moon or something like that, or the spoon under the moon. And now they don't anymore, so I stand corrected. But they always used to put moon in the title of their pubs.
I mean, Manx Moon would have sounded all right, and I do definitely agree with it. The old post office would have sounded a damn sight better than the Conister Arms.
Yeah. But
anyway, what do I know, Andy? What do I know?
We just wonder whether or not it's going to be in place for TT.
No, I can't see it myself, can you?
7 weeks on Mondays, the start of qualifying. Practice week.
I tell you what, if they bring a load of Japanese builders over, it'll be done by the weekend.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Thanks for calling.
All right, mate. See you later.
Bye-bye. Have a good weekend. And if you can tell me if this is true, then is building height dependent on the nearest church spire, or is that? It would be a great story if it's true. Adam's on now. Hello, Adam.
Hi, Randy. You all right?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
That's good. I'm just ringing up about a couple of things. First of all, the Bishop. I just wanted to express support for the Bishop and having the vote in Tynwald, because obviously she's a strong moral and ethical voice who represents all the island's Anglicans and probably the Methodists as well, seeing as they're an offshoot of the Anglicans. And it's great that she's. I think it's great that she's in there and a strong moral and ethical voice for us all. And so I wanted to express support for her. But what I was mainly ringing up about was there are some members of the Manx Labour Party, Andy, some politicians in the Isle of Man, who seem to be deliberately running Douglas down. And they seem to hate any improvements to the urban environment that they view, which they view as any attempt to enhance the built environment as gentrification. And they will never do anything to improve the Promenade Drives down there on Central Promenade, because it might drive flat rental prices up, where the former hotels have been converted to increasingly dilapidated apartments. Yeah. And along the Promenade Drives there, the remaining hotels like the Welbeck, the Seaview and the Ascot, for example, they have to suffer as the surrounding buildings become increasingly run down. This damages those businesses, and it makes it more likely that they themselves will sell out to flats. And so you get a downward spiral of an ever more deteriorating urban environment, closing hotels and businesses.
Why do you say it's Douglas Council's responsibility? What do you mean by they're running down the built environment?
They're not investing in it, Andy. They're not investing in it. They're not doing it up. They don't want to do it up because it's they view it as gentrification. So they view it as gentrification, and therefore you get this. They won't spend any money in it, so therefore you get a downward spiral, deteriorating urban environment, closing hotels and businesses, declining property values, declining investment in buildings by the owners, and an ever more impoverished population. So it's just a downward spiral. And you can say any form of doing anywhere up is gentrification.
Yeah,
this is what they're fundamentally opposed to, Andy.
You say the Manx Labour Party. What do you mean? You think it's politically driven?
I do think it's politically driven, yes, because they don't believe in gentrification. Some of them are deliberately opposed to any doing up of the urban environment because they view it as gentrification. And I fully accept, to be honest, Andy, that many of the people who live in the vicinity of the Promenade Drives are among the poorest in the Isle of Man, and that is precisely a result of converted Victorian boarding houses, making for relatively low quality and therefore cheap accommodation. But Andy, those people should not be paying high rental prices to private landlords on an island where house prices are being kept artificially high due to low property supply because of foreign development companies sitting on prime development land at the expense of the Manx people.
Well,
And Andy, it was...
Yeah, I mean, one thing that interests me is, and by the Welbeck, I think that's Mona Drive, Empress Drive, Mona Drive, and Castle Drive, aren't they? The three by the old Castle Mona. What interests me is around Empress Drive, they've still got festoon lights, Adam.
Yeah, they've still got festoon lights, Andy, but
I
they're
don't
not
know
doing
how.
that, are they? They look out of place now, don't they? Because they don't spend any money investing in it. I mean, they've still got they were always separate to the main promenade lights because they're actually coloured lights.
Yeah.
They're different strings of colours, whereas the promenade lights themselves, the strings of lights which rang parallel to the promenade on either side, from light to light, were white lights, and there was coloured lights going across the promenade. So they were always slightly separate to the promenade lights. But the area needs investing in, Andy, to support the businesses that are still there. And it was disappointing to hear Rob Collister the other day say that he thought it was unlikely that they would be building any more social housing in Douglas, because instead of having to pay high prices to private landlords, the poorest in society, in my opinion, should be accommodated in high-quality social housing. And in fact, there would be no need for this accommodation to be on the outskirts of town, and you could very easily put it on the Promenade Drives so that the poorer population who are down there living in the flats and the apartments that have been converted from the boarding houses could remain exactly where they are. And in fact, you can actually build social housing there into where the old boarding houses are and kickstart the regeneration process of the area. And by demolishing the low-quality flats in the form of boarding houses and replacing them with high-quality, purpose-built, aesthetically in keeping social housing in the form of apartments, there would be no need for social housing to be ugly or poor in quality or restricted to the suburbs. It could be right there on the Promenade Drives.
Interesting. What about the idea of a tower block? Do you think there should ever be a tower block in Douglas? Because that's a way of, basically use high-density housing in an area. Do you think there's ever an idea for putting a social housing tower block?
I don't know, Andy. I think maybe in the centre of town you could put a big, you could almost have a skyscraper, couldn't you, going up from the Middlemarch side or the 4th Street side, going up there next to where the police station is, opposite the bus station, down there, and you could have a huge big skyscraper as a central feature of to Douglas, or a monument to capitalism, or a social housing development.
What do you think about the Peel Road social housing, those flats there? Because what are they, 3-4 stories high?
Yeah, I think they could be renovated and turned into studio apartments, or I think they could easily be, pulled down and replaced by, or you could turn the centre of Douglas, you could have it as urban wetlands, for example, which is like in China now, they're doing all the sponge cities, and it's the latest thing in the UK to have urban wetlands in all the different cities and regions. And you could have urban wetlands in the centre of Douglas on the Middlemarch site and the bus station site, and you could have a corridor, a green corridor, running up Lord Street where the existing urban flats are. So, I mean, there's loads of different options for that site. It's just what you want to do with it. And people need to, in the Isle of Man, people need to stop assuming that the value of land is going up, always claiming that the value of land is so high because it's theoretical business. Value is high. There's not demand, coming from outside for development on all this land that the Isle of Man's got. So therefore, people need to view it differently. People need to ask themselves how it could be used to improve the built environment.
Well, somebody somewhere, Adam, somebody's got to have a vision about this. Obviously, there's got to be a vision. There's got to be political will, and thirdly, and probably most importantly, there's got to be the funds for it. There's got to be the money.
Yes, there does. But I think the Manx government and the island's local authorities need to embrace regeneration as a tool to mitigate against spiralling decline in urban areas. And it could quite easily be kick-started by building high-quality, aesthetically pleasing or even visually impressive social housing in places like the Promenade Drives, or, as you say, on Lord Street, or down at the bus station. You could have a development like when Prince Charles down in Dorset and Dorchester, he's got a place called Poundsbury. Yeah. It's based on all the vernacular. The buildings are all designed based on all the vernacular architecture of the area.
Interesting.
And they're all, and you could do a similar thing down at the bus station. You could rebuild the old St Matthew's Church and rebuild the old Manx buildings that used to be down there, and sort of have it quite a quirky little feel to the place.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So a modern retro feel to it almost.
Yeah, a modern retro feel to it.
Okay.
Or have it as a big green space, as I say, as urban wetlands in the centre of Douglas, and make the centre of town, have it as an urban parkland area of wetlands where people can spend recreation time and a draw to the centre of Douglas, or put the bus station back even better.
Okay, well, I mean, the one thing that's for certain, the Victorians had vision. The Victorians were very, very, they did things with panache. When the Victorians did something, it was done. We don't seem to have that same amount of vision that the Victorians had, Adam.
No, well, I think there's more health and safety rules these days, isn't there, Andy, and that sort of thing, and more bureaucracy in the way. But I don't know. I think economics might have something to do with it as well. I think economics has changed things. The pound isn't. I don't know. I'm not an economist, Andy, but I don't know. Economics has changed.
All right. Good to talk to you, Adam. Thanks for being with us today.
Nice to speak to you, Andy. Take care.
Cheers now. It was revealed the Isle of Man's getting its first ever Wetherspoons pub on the 14th of May. The Conister Arms will open in the building that's currently 1886 on Regent Street, the old post office. A 4-storey venue, 725 person capacity. That's the fire limit, I take it. Well, also outdoor seating. So we took a Max Radio microphone to Regent Street to see what you think.
It spits in the face of kind of some of the island's identity. Feels like a selling out to corporate culture. Yeah, the pub scene on the island's not been great recently, but bringing something like Wetherspoons over isn't going to help anything.
We don't need a larger company like Wetherspoons coming over to try and enter the market, because they will take away from the local businesses that we are losing out. The point that they're saying is that bringing Wetherspoons in will bring people into the street and get them out there, but into a company that's not going to contribute to the Manx economy.
I wouldn't like to see this change to a Wetherspoons for the atmosphere. It'd be bland, because James does a lot. He does a lot for the pub. He tries to promote the pub. He spent a lot of money in this pub, actually. I think will it take off? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think it's a good thing. I used to live in the UK, and I used to go to Wetherspoons quite a lot, and I was honestly surprised that it's not already here. I think it's a good market for them. I'm not a huge fan of 1886. It's quite expensive, and I think Wetherspoons is going to be a more affordable place to go.
People have had an invested interest in almost a cartel over here. Don't need to mention who they are. They all pee in the same pot, and they're the people who are a bit more riled now. So the way I look at it, people have a choice. They know what Wetherspoons is about. It's consistent, quick food, decent food, good prices. You can take your family out for breakfast, have change for 20 quid. And what people don't realise is that people with some more money in their pockets, they can go and spend it elsewhere on the high street. At the moment, you can't take your family out for breakfast and spend less than 50 quid hardly.
Any thoughts on this? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. And John the Pilot said, Andy, I'm intrigued to see Michelle Hayward MHK stating on Facebook comments she's reliably informed we'll have more fully trained valid ATCOs very soon, ATCOs, air traffic controllers. As somebody who deals with the staff and the unit a lot, this is clearly not correct. Ronaldsway Air Traffic Control have lost 2 further on-the-job training instructors, ATCOs, as they're not being adequately looked after in terms of their employment contract, says John. They're overworked, and these duties, they have a personal responsibility to ensure the safety at all times, which is stressful. It appears they have an extremely fractious relationship with the airport director. These are John's words, by the way, who was previously their boss. So the bottom line is the training of ATCOs is almost at a standstill, and we need answers from the airport director and the minister as soon as possible. It appears, in my opinion, the infrastructure minister is receiving dubious information from the airport management. That's John's opinion on that, and the story goes on about us not having enough air traffic controllers. Consequently, all the flights have to be concertinaed into a certain time, and obviously with only restricted ground handling and a luggage wagon, you know what happens. Julian's on now. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I agree with Adam, actually, on what he was saying before. Kind of interesting looking at the comments on the wonderful Manx Nostalgia Facebook page. Rather wistfully looking at pictures from the 60s and before, when you had the beautiful lights on the promenade, and it's so wide it looks like a motorway compared to those indented pavements that are so wide now that you can barely get 2 cars down. It'd be kind of interesting. We used to get 2 trams as well down that middle bit, didn't we, at one time? It
does, yeah, I agree. And many people ask, why our promenades are so wide, the walkways are so wide. I mean, they were genuinely needed in the days when people used to pour out of the boarding houses and the hotels. The promenade walkways were absolutely jam-packed.
Yeah. It's don't know. Perhaps somebody doesn't like cars. Just wanted to mention this morning an article on the BBC website titled "I could live 30 years but plan to die. Has assisted dying in Canada gone too far?" The article refers to April Hubbard. She's a 39-year-old wheelchair-bound burlesque artist who was born with spina bifida and has tumours on the base of her spine. And she's been fast-tracked for MAID, medical assistance in dying in Canada, 7 months early. Her friend Andrew, who has cerebral palsy and is also in a wheelchair, respects her decision but says, "If my disability declines and my care needs get higher, I'd still want to be here. To know there's a law that's saying you could easily end your life, it's just really scary." Also, it mentions that annually there are now over 15,500 people euthanized under MAID just in Canada per year. Most are under track 1, where the death is reasonably foreseeable. But there's an increasing number which are under track 2 for people who are not dying but suffering. Long-standing opponents are saying that MAID is out of control. It's not even a slippery slope anymore. Canada has fallen off a cliff. But my question in a way is, I think Manx Care is kind of under a lot of problems at the moment, isn't it, Andy? I think nobody's in doubt that Manx Care are struggling, with funding and appointments and all this kind of thing. I assume, from what Dr. Allinson has said, is that assisted dying is going to be carried out by Manx Care.
Well,
so
at the moment,
at
the moment we don't know. Crikey, we don't even know whether Manx Care is going to be there. So it's all a bit muddy at the moment, and I don't know whether that's by accident or design.
Yeah, I mean, David Ashford said to me on your programme last year that there's been no calculation for the financials on what this assisted dying is going to be. Yeah. Dignitas is mentioned on the Dignity in Dying's website at least £15,000. But here, we're going to have some kind of panels that are going to have to look at, judicial ideas about coercion. And I noticed that the UK sitting fees are £800 per member of a panel per day. So what's that going to add up to?
Well, I'm told that the as you say, it's about 15,000 euros at Dignitas in Basel in Switzerland. However, a lot of that, I'm assured, is nothing to do with the medications or the drugs that are taken. It's to do with insurances and Swiss legislation and fees to the government. So the actual cost of the process is not terribly expensive, but it's the, if you like, it's the bureaucracy that goes around it that can jack the price up.
I noticed when you said what the cost of the drugs are, there's been no clinical trials, and we don't know yet what is going to happen here because every jurisdiction around the world has got something different. Yeah. One of the ones that's being used is sodium pentobarbital with a sacobarbital chaser, it seems. But those are in 12,500 milligrams, 10,000 milligrams, midazolam. But I notice also that some of the states in Australia, now, interestingly, the Northern Territories were the first to put it in, but they reversed course with another law to reverse it a year later because of ethical and worries about slippery slopes and things. So the Northern Territories still hasn't got it, but the other ones are bringing it in.
Okay. All right, we appreciate it. Well, anyway, if anybody wants to look at this, it's on the BBC website, as you say. I could live 30 years but plan to die. Has assisted dying in Canada gone too far? All right, Julian, appreciate it.
Cheers, thanks.
Thanks for calling today. And John joins us now. Hello, John.
14 stories.
Yes.
Well, when they built King's Court in Ramsey, I'm not quite sure how many stories it is now, but I was told by a fireman from Douglas that it was intended to be 2 stories higher. But the fire brigade said their equipment wouldn't go that high, and that was the end of the final 2 stories.
Oh, what an interesting point. So if the fire department don't have a ladder that'll reach 14 stories...
I mean, they may do now with modern equipment. I don't know, but 14 stories sounds very high.
Well, it is. I mean, if you look at on the Manx Radio website, there's an artist's impression, a computer impression of it, and it towers above everywhere.
And that's the thing. I mean, I was always brought up to believe that if you built anything or altered anything, it had to fit in with the surrounding area.
Yeah.
14 stories is not going to fit in with anything, is it?
Well, I mean, the thing is that at some point, change always happens. And I'll just refer back to the Victorians. The Victorians didn't care much for what went before. They swept everything in front of them and built whatever they wanted, didn't they?
Yeah, but they didn't go ridiculously high, did they?
Well, that's true. I don't think the building technology was in place then to do that. Now, of course, we can do that, but I think they went to some of the hotels on the Prom went up about 4 stories, and that was it, I think, back with Victorian technology. But so you wouldn't like to see 14 stories then?
My God, no.
Okay.
I certainly wouldn't want to live on the top of that, no.
Right.
Now, the other thing, Wetherspoons.
Yeah.
Now, we've toured a lot in England and Scotland and all over. Whenever we go anywhere, we always look out for the Wetherspoons because we've never had a bad meal. It's always been reasonably priced, and you can't fault it. And the beer's always good and a vast choice. The best steak I ever had was in Wetherspoons in Fort William in Scotland. So, it's and we've waited a long time for Wetherspoons to come here.
Okay, so you'll be going?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, all right. Thanks, John. Good to hear from you.
Okay.
Cheers now.
Bye now.
All right. A note in from 830, Another View. I think it's a massive mistake, Wetherspoons coming here. They couldn't even get, 1886, couldn't even get staff. They had robots delivering your food. I know. That was weird, having the robot bring it. We don't need anything else like Wetherspoons, says this correspondent. And I was going to refer you to that BBC article. It's shocking. That's a note in from 045. My first year on the trams was 1990, and I was employed in 1991 on them. That was the rave party area. Now I suggest some of the people who want to assisted dying are users of those recreational drugs in the time. Well, we don't know, do we? 045. By the way, in the early 1950s, there were 600,000 recorded tickets sold in the days of staged fares on the horse tramway service. Better now, it's Douglas Bay Tramways. I remember the glory days, and it's nice looking back. And 14 stories equals 151 feet. Says Paul, the fire service new turntable ladder is 42 metres. That's 137 feet. So 14 stories, 151 feet. The new fire service turntable ladder is 137 feet. I think we get the picture. I think they should build it at least 24 stories high, where our government should be based at the top floor. Then they'd be able to look out to sea and look at all those people coming over, says Brian. Are you referring to come over civil servants with cut and paste solutions? Here's Charlie now. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Mike. John took part of my question.
Yeah.
A comparison. You take Lloyd's Bank on the Villiers side.
Yeah.
This new development, Lord Tree, is going to be 3 times the height of that.
Crikey, it is, isn't it?
And the other question was, do we have a fire thing to get up there?
Well, apparently not. I mean, that's not an official figure.
I know, I've just heard that.
Yeah.
But when you compare the Lloyd's Bank, a third of the size of this new development, that's a big building.
So you wouldn't like to see it?
Well, I think the tower blocks on Ramsey Promenade are a carbuncle.
Wow.
A lot of them are looking very shabby in any case now.
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, if you don't look after something, if it's not maintained, then it will look a bit tired over the years. I
know, but you're not allowed to do any work above 12 foot without a scaffold now.
Oh, is that so? Right, okay.
So how are you going to... you can't get to every part of that on a cherry picker, can you?
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay. All right, Charlie.
But 3 times the height of the Villiers, Lloyd's Bank and Villiers. That's one big building. Okay, but
good to hear from you. Thanks for that. It's what are we now? 14 minutes before 1.
Get ready for more with Manx Telecom. With more data, more speed and more countries included, Go Roam is the island's only mobile tariff range to cover 37 countries with unlimited speeds on all plans. Upgrade in store or call 624-624. That's 624-624. Visit mt.im/Go Roam for details, terms and conditions.
We make oil heating easy with our range of services. Whether it's our free smart tank monitoring systems or just our efficient all-island deliveries, Ellen Vannin Fuels has it covered. Call us on 844 000 to find out more.
Hi Liz, I see you've had your garage converted. We're desperate for more room.
Yes, come through and have a look. John called Manx Property Conversions. We now have an extra bedroom, but it could be another reception room, kids' playroom or office. They also did our conservatory roof last year. We were so impressed, we got them back to convert the garage.
Wow, I need that. What's their number again?
Call MPC on 450 500. That's 450 500. Or find them on Facebook at Manx Property Conversions.
Don't miss the Cane and Wicker furniture range in store at Millichaps of Ramsey. Includes sofas, chairs and swivel rocker chairs, dining sets and coffee tables with designs featuring quality frames, beautiful fabrics including Laura Ashley designs and comfortable fully sprung seats with leather bindings. Plus, we have special offer suites and a huge range of window blinds to complement. Discover exclusive Cane and Wicker furniture in store now at Millichaps of Ramsey.
Having suffered their heaviest home defeat of the season last time out, can FC Isle of Man bounce back in the NWCFL Premier Division this weekend? Hoping to end their ever-increasingly difficult run of results, can the visits of Charnock Richard to the Bowl on Saturday help the Ravens get off the ground again? Join me, Rob Pritchard and Tony Mepham for FC Isle of Man versus Charnock Richard, kicking off at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Manx Radio will be bringing you full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Michael dropped me a note. Over £700 for a car and two on TT week. When's the team packet going to start running to the advantage of the Isle of Man? Dynamic pricing, isn't it? Rather than the island running to the advantage of the SPCO. The island's losing a lot of revenue from fans who say it's just too expensive to visit the Isle of Man. £700 car plus two. And Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. I've just listened to Julian there. What a sad day when the BBC has gone to Canada for this lady that's going to go through the assisted dying.
Yeah.
But she is going to have this on a stage with a spotlight and her family around her. Now, this now becomes almost like a spectacle. And I said to Chris, later on there'll be people come and say, well, I remember when that lady died on that stage,
yeah.
And the ghouls will come in. And this is something that our government, whether they agree with it or they don't agree with it, it's something that's going to have to be covered, where people who are going through the assisted dying, they should have to do it in a place with dignity. You don't get the hospice, God bless them, all the people that's up there. They don't have a spectacle in the hospice. Imagine doing something like that in the Gaiety Theatre, because it would open a colossal door that you would never be able to close again. You know, and this is apparently the BBC have been out recording this in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fact that particular lady wants to do that. I mean, she is a performance artist. April Hubbard, her name is, but I mean, that is, as you say, it smacks of a circus, of a kind of music hall. It really, I mean, it's not for me to have an opinion. What do you think?
I don't think it should be allowed, and that is a very, very thin tip to the iceberg. And it can happen, and then what do you get next? You get somebody else that was a motorcycle rider, want to be laid out on a motorcycle on the stage or on the TT course. You've got to have some form of dignity, because this is what they're shouting, dying with dignity. And I've lost a lot of people in the last few years with cancer, and they've all been up or been in the hospice. And that, to me, is dignity. They look after you, and your dignity to the end of your life is looked after. But this particular lady, okay, she's an actress. Well, what's the rest of the actresses? Actors, in other words, you know what they're like. They all want to get one over on the other. And next thing, it would be out of all proportion, and they'd be having a circus show. And, what do the family actually think of this? They're going to be there sitting around the circle and the spotlight on. And in this instance, apparently, it's not with tablets or otherwise. A doctor will have to be on the stage with her and actually give her an injection. So that there then, it's choreographed. And that is not dignity. So be careful, the Isle of Man government. This bill has already gone through, but it's the tail end bits they have to tidy up. Just ensure that the people of the Isle of Man or people coming to the Isle of Man cannot go down that same road.
I mean, what would you say to people who would say, it's their life, it's their right to end it, and it's their right to end it anytime they want, any way they want?
That's quite all right. That's perfectly okay. In that sense, I know people will disagree with it, but everybody has an opinion. But it should not be made a spectacle on a theatre stage.
Right.
That is where the problem lies. Is that where they're making it a showpiece, and people, they're going to get gradually worse and worse and worse, and they've got to do bigger and better than the last one. And where do you stop?
Okay.
So,
all right, appreciate it.
Same with the sea wall down there. I've just been downtown and I picked up a book in a charity shop. The storm of December 1924 was reported by the Liverpool Echo as the worst seen for years. And there's a picture here of the promenade with stones and the tide coming over. And that was in December 1924, 100 years ago.
Wow.
So global warming is not a new phenomenon.
All right. Thanks, Howard. Have a good weekend.
Take care. Bye now.
123 dropped a text in just to say speed limits. I've written to my MHK and got an ambiguous response. I can't be bothered even to reply. Anyway, I'm seriously considering driving at 20 miles per hour and other proposed changes to show how awful it will be, says Ali. If there are any protests at Tynwald arranged, count on me against the 20 mile per hour limit. Update says 109, they've fixed the leak at M&Co. If you look above, they've rolled plastic sheeting out and weighed it down with bags of compost. High-tech stuff, eh? I was amazed to see the Ben McCree, says Gemma and Douglas Harbour on the BBC drama The City Is Ours. Spotted that, looked very nice, didn't it? Let's see, I had a work vehicle damaged by a hit and run, probably drink or driving, perhaps no insurance, lent me £1,500 out of pocket. The police don't seem to be interested, yet there are lots of offences where this is concerned. Yeah, Alan, is that a civil offence or is it a criminal offence? It would be interesting to know. If you get damaged by a hit and run and obviously don't know, is that civil, or is it? What point does the constabulary get involved? We worry about speed in school zones, but children walking into the road without looking while getting their last mobile fix before school is a concern, says Gaz. Obviously, our children and young people getting the highway code drummed into them? Do they actually know how to cross the road? Because we've all seen it, people with headphones on or earbuds in, just simply walking out into the road. Apparently, the property, the 1886, is still owned by Jim and Diane. New name Wetherspoons. They'll have music very soon, apparently. That's it. A note in from 450 said, what are the statistics of hitting a person at 20 miles per hour and 30 miles per hour in all for 20 mile an hour around schools, hospitals and estates, but not everywhere in towns? A recipe for road rage, says 450. I'm sad to hear Wetherspoons are coming here. Our pubs and cafes are struggling. Wetherspoons will be the last nail in their coffin. Having been in some of them, I couldn't recommend them anyway. I thought they were scruffy, says 068. Well, we'll see, and obviously they'll have to bring the beer and the food on the boat, won't they? So that'll put prices up. That's it. Have a fantastic weekend. Looks like we got a dry weekend, and thanks to Chris on the phones today.
WINT